gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is not the sideshow. This isn't even the undercard. This is the main event. My name is Ryan Baldwin, joined as always by my right-hand man sitting at my left-hand side, the one and only Mason Shepard.
How y'all doing?
It's a beautiful day to talk sports.
Yep.
Even though it's a little light on the sports today, it's a lot of sports adjacency.
Sports adjacent stuff.
That's fine. That's what we live for.
Yeah. Sorry, folks. There's no Jeremiah and Jose today.
No Jeremiah, no Jose today. It's going to be a bit more, not subdued, but a bit less rowdy maybe than last week. And of course, this is our test run for video.
Yes.
I'm not sure how this is going to work, but we're going to give it a shot. We're going to give you the inside scoop on the podcast here. Let y'all watch us talk.
Yeah.
As much as you enjoy listening to us talk.
Trust me, folks, whatever you guys envision, it's pretty much how it is.
If you thought it was just two guys sitting down talking sports, yes,
yeah.
That is exactly what it is. So let's go ahead and dive right in.
All right.
Because over the weekend we had the atrocity that was the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
And after watching the two-hand touch game that went on for far longer than it needed to be, I was like, this is just terrible.
Yeah.
It's just not good. And then I also watched the highlights of the NHL All-Star game, and I was like, that was boring too.
Yeah.
And so it kind of got me thinking, what has happened to the All-Star games in general, and across U.S. sports, not just one particular, because they are
all going down.
They are all going down. The MLB peaked back in 2008 and has dropped 6 million viewers since then.
Wow.
The NBA peaked in, looks like 1998 and has gone down nearly 10 million viewers since then.
Sounds about right.
With last year posting a record low 5.94 million viewers.
Yep.
The Pro Bowl peaked back in 2010
I was in
or 2011 and then went down. They've dropped 6 million viewers.
Yep. And
I don't have the latest data for the All-Star game, but they did post 3 straight drops between 2017 and 2019.
Yeah, I would imagine. If I had to make a guess, I would say the All-Star game probably dropped, 5 million viewers.
Yeah.
I would give it around that.
And part of it is there's nothing to play for anymore.
No.
Especially like the MLB, I just found this out today because I thought it was the case, but they don't play for home field advantage in the World Series anymore.
No.
So literally there's no prize, no incentive to play.
Nope.
They all play to not get hurt.
Yep.
And there's no defense being played, and it's barely even recognized. It's not even the same game as the rest of the regular season.
Yeah, and the reason why they are the way they are is because the more players have evolved and the game has evolved, the more the players realize, oh, this is just a game for pride. Yeah, I really could care less. Because back then, so many old school guys that the generation of football that I grew up on looked up to played for pride. They're like, okay, we're the best on this side. We're going to knock your side off the face of the earth in this game. That's just how it was, because they were like, we want to prove that we're the best, because I think they still wanted to prove, and, it's not about race, but I think especially with black people being predominant in the sports, what it was that proving that you belonged in a sport that you weren't allowed in the first place means a lot. But as things got more familiar and time went on and people realized, oh, this is just a game about, nothing, the pride level dropped, so they were just like, okay, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. And you see that in the NBA, where it's like, oh, you mean to tell me that, Jordan, used to play again. I'm just throwing stuff out here. I'm not saying that actually happened, but Jordan used to play against Magic, and those guys were like, so obsessed about who was going to be better than the other that they played their hearts out in this game. Yeah, we're not going to do that. Right. That went away. And I think because a lot of older guys like Jordan have talked about how they don't like how the guys have become friends on the court as well as off. Like, they were like off the court, because everybody off the court had friends. But they don't like how that has been brought in to, like, the actual sport. Like, for example, you know how NFL players, like, when they're close friends after a game, they're like, hey, man, give me your jersey, I'll give you mine.
Yeah.
So many old heads hate that. They hate seeing that because it's just like, you just knocked the crap out of this man for at least over 3 hours. And your team just beat his and y'all are trading jerseys?
Or even worse, his team just beat yours.
Yeah, and you're giving him your jersey. So
Yeah.
you're giving... I heard one guy, he's like, you just gave this man a trophy after beating you. What is that? And I think that new school mentality of, man, why am I going to get hurt playing in a game that doesn't matter, has just brought it down. And look, I don't watch hockey, so I don't know what they could do for the NHL to make it better. The NFL, there's really nothing they can do. But the NBA, they could do, and we talked about some of this last week, the NBA could do things to make it better because they have that ability. The NBA could start implementing horse, like Ryan talked about, or they could, in my opinion, my favorite thing, the dunk contest, they could bring in these crazy YouTube dunkers that you see, offer them some money, or scour the globe for people who do amazing dunks, and they, get them in because that would draw money in the sense of, okay, this is still the NBA dunk contest. But let me put it to you like this, right? Because the NBA would probably be like, well, if it's the NBA dunk contest, we need NBA players. No one cares about these random people you put in this contest because you don't know. From a booking standpoint, I'm using my wrestling mind here. From a booking standpoint, wouldn't it be better to get someone off of social media that everybody uses so everybody would know who this is versus, okay, this is like the guy who's like 14 on the bench list for like the Indiana Pacers. He can dunk, so we're going to put him in this contest. Nobody cares. And you're only going to get a Zach LaVine or an Aaron Gordon. Well, Aaron Gordon was kind of known from college, but you're only going to get a Zach LaVine so many times where it's like, oh, this guy has some real athletic ability. Let's kind of follow this guy around and kind of keep an eye on his career. Oh, this guy can actually do well when it's not a dunk contest. Okay, he's going to become a face of a team now. There's only so many cases that you're going to get.
I think part of the problem, too, is that the game, I think the skill competition type stuff generally gets pretty good views.
Yeah.
But the games are just so boring to watch.
Yes.
Like, in the NHL, it's 3v3 for 2 10-minute periods. And 3v3 is kind of cool in overtime where it's next goal wins and it brings that level of excitement. But when you do it in 2 10-minute periods...
That's too long.
It's too long, and it's the same problem as the NBA where nobody plays... Like, in hockey, you just can't physically play defense in a 3v3 environment for that long, that well.
No.
And you just constantly give up 2v1s and 2v0s, and eventually the goalie's just like, oh, cool, 2v0. Well, I guess I'll just kind of throw myself at it and hope I save it.
Yeah.
And it's so boring. But at least the NHL does cool stuff like mixing up different skill competitions. Like, I think it was 2 years ago, they took players up into, like, the second ring. Maybe it was 3 years ago. I think it was right before COVID. They took players up into the second ring of stands and had them, like, shoot out to center ice for, like, accuracy. For their, like, targets on the ice. Yeah. So they were shooting from the stands. I'm like, that's cool. Why can't we do more of that skills? You know what? I would even be fine just nixing the All-Star games entirely. Yeah. And just give me the craziest skill stuff you can come up with. Make it almost like a combine, but do like some crazy stuff. Do like a tag team shuttle drill. Or like, could you run like a perfect corner route? Like if you were with your quarterback, could you run a perfectly timed corner route blindfolded and catch the ball? Yeah. Like if you had done it so many times, do you think your quarterback? Because I bet some receivers with their quarterback. I bet they have good enough timing where they know it's like 8 steps. Like they don't know, like they're not counting. Yeah. But they know what it feels like to run a 10-yard corner and where that ball's going to be. Because I bet there's some people that could get it.
They could get it. I think the only reason they wouldn't do something like that is like a lot of people would miss, and then people would be like, okay, too many people are missing. This sucks.
Sure, but I mean something crazy.
But something like that, yeah. So basically,
give me a reason to watch because I have no reason to watch.
No, you don't.
I don't. I have no reason to tune in.
No.
Especially because, like, now, since it's before this, especially now the Pro Bowl is before the Super Bowl, there's so many players that are just like, no. Yeah. Or that they got hurt during the playoffs, or they're in the Super Bowl, and so they don't go.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, listen, folks, the Diggs brothers switching positions was cute, but that's not going to draw money.
No.
That's not going to draw viewership. That is something that you can see in a 15-second clip on social media and be done with it.
That's when you do, like, AFC versus NFC one-on-one drills.
Yeah.
And then you have, okay, like, the highlight is going to be Trayvon on offense versus Stephon on defense. Yeah.
That would work.
Yeah,
but
in like
in
a
game
one-on-one
where
or a 7-on-7.
Exactly. But in a game where no one plays,
yeah.
having them switch positions, just like,
yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not like they weren't going to go, like, even if they were, they looked like they were kind of going full speed, but, like, it's not like they were going to try and, like, do a jump ball and possibly tear an ACL on the way down.
They weren't. And, I mean, I kind of agree with you. If that's the case and people are like, I don't want to get hurt, just nix the games.
Yeah.
Give us the challenges, because people would watch that.
Mm-hmm.
I think people forget, in my honest opinion, the dunk contest was always the highlight of every, even if, the All-Star game, whatever, dunk contest was always the highlight because you wanted to see what people were going to do. But then again, these were people with names. Dwight Howard, Nate Robinson. You can say what you want about their careers overall. They have a name. Unfortunately, Nate's name doesn't mean so much anymore. But, they had something. But when you've got the Mason Plumleys of the world and you've got all these random guys doing this stuff, it's just like you can't get anybody better. And it's one of those things where it's like, in my opinion, if you want to draw money, you have to give people, because this is all-star, even if you have to go and get some outside people, which I think they should start doing, you got to give something people have not seen.
Yeah.
Because, if you're going to give them something that they've seen, the players have to play with intensity. When they don't, then who cares?
Yeah.
And I just think it's one of those things where it's like, if people aren't given a reason to do it, they're just not going to. And I think one of the biggest problems with all-star games is that you get so many people who are convinced, oh, this is fun, this is exciting, this is good, we have a celebrity host, which that has been lame the last few years. And it's just one of those things where it's like there's so much stuff that needs to be fixed. Like I remember on the NBA dunk contest, they had celebrities on their panel like one year. And they may like had a few basketball players, but it's mostly celebrities. And everybody was like, these guys probably dunk on their basketball goals at home, but they don't have the tools to critique a good dunk. So then the NBA kind of changed that, and they went with, okay, we're going to just have a panel of people who have been in this contest before.
Right.
Or at least played basketball.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things, like, too, where I kind of talked about it last week, where, like, eventually you run out of new dunks, right? But eventually you run into a point where the human body can only be so athletic, you can only jump so high, and you can only spin so many times just based on where we are right now in human evolution. So, maybe down the road people can jump 20 feet in the air and you do some kind of crazy flips and stuff. But for right now, we just see the same dunks with maybe some balls thrown here or start jumping over a dude. But, like, jumping over a dude is jumping over a dude.
Yeah,
anytime you see that, you're like, well, I saw that last year.
Yeah, I think what they should do, if they still want NBA teams to be sponsored, what they can do is, I just thought of this, they can bring in these people from YouTube and stuff like that. Of course, the problem with that is you can't bring in the same people every year. But still, you could, if they come up with new stuff, then might as well. But what you do is you bring in these people from social media who do these crazy dunks, and you put them on a team. Like, representing the Utah Jazz, the professor, and, like, he, practices his dunks at their training facility. He's a member of the Jazz, the way they can say a member of the Jazz won the dunk contest. Yeah. Something like that. Because that could work. Because I've seen other sports do it. I can't remember which specifically, but they have, like celebrities be an official part of the team and whatever. That's happened before. It's just, again, when you're thinking as a booker or a promoter, you need to put on something because they cannot overlook how important this game is because that's where they make a lot of their money. Of course, they make it throughout the season and sponsorships and in television. But the All-Star is when they get that huge surplus. Because here's the thing, and I've noticed this in myself. Once the Super Bowl's over, a lot less people start watching sports. Because football's like everybody's saying like, oh yeah, and then when it's just basketball, it's like, yeah, but also I could stay away from sports for a while. The All-Star game is that last piece of where it's like, oh, I want to see like something, and the NBA makes a lot of going into their second half of the season. They make a lot of their money from those events.
Yeah.
And if they choose to be like, okay, we're not going to change this, then they're going to lose a lot of money because it's so boring. And like the skills challenge, don't get me wrong, the skills challenge is cool. Here's the weird thing: it's opposite. I think a skills challenge, like you were just kind of suggesting for football, with the blindfolded corner routes and stuff like that. I think skills challenges work better in football because if you amp those stakes up to where it's like, okay, do this impossible thing, that garners more interest. When it's basketball, it's kind of like you're watching people do drills, and it's just like, it's entertaining, but even then that's going to get boring at some point because it's like, eh.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be. Like, again,
No,
you
it
could do
doesn't have to be.
horse, you could do 21, you could do a 3v3 half-court game, you could do a logo 3 contest where you go along the half or the mid-court line. There's options.
I like the horse, and you're going to stick with that logo 3 thing, aren't you?
I am.
I mean, it's not a bad idea.
I mean, everybody shoots it now, and it's slightly more interesting than watching a dude drain practice threes.
Yeah, I think a 21 game should definitely be a part of it. 21 has been a part of basketball culture since really it's kind of its inception. Mm-hmm. So playing a 21 game, I think I would replace the All-Star game with a game of 21 personally, because that's just, it gives people something to look forward to, and not every, and plus it would make being an NBA All-Star that much more prestigious if it was like, oh, you're selected for the All-Star team. Because, people are like, now there are guys who happy they get snubbed because they don't want to be there.
Yeah.
So it's just like, if you make it prestigious and you make it mean something where it's like, you're playing in the 21 tournament or game, then it's like, oh, I really am doing well. But when you stick Andrew Wiggins in there, it's like, okay, they just need kind of someone to fill a space here, and nobody cares.
Yeah. Either way, and it's not just like, I know we talked about the NFL and NBA a lot, but it's every sport is declining in the All-Star.
Well, those are the two major ones, besides baseball and what they do.
But again, baseball now, there's nothing really to play for. I mean,
no.
It's basically just another baseball game, and you have the home run derby and the celebrity softball game, which can occasionally be pretty good depending on who they have out there. But like, really now, I think the home run derby is more popular than the actual game.
Yeah, no, it is.
So
the home run derby is like the dunk contest in the sense of that's what really everybody looks forward to. The game is just circumstance at this point.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, there's no easy fix. There's obviously a couple things they can do in each sport, but they got to figure something out because, again, they just keep dropping ratings year after year, and it does not appear to be getting any better anytime soon.
And it won't be this year either.
No, I can't wait to see what those Pro Bowl ratings come out, because I bet so many people turned it off after watching just two-hand touch. And
well, because I think the reason, and it keeps going back to what you said, the reason that a lot of, especially old heads, legends in the sports, don't like these games, as well as fans, is because they feel like you need an incentive to play this game seriously.
Yeah.
You can't just go out there and play like we did, play for pride, play for wanting to just be the best.
Yeah.
You have to, a raise or a trophy. No.
Because like like when you talk old heads, what that reminded me of was the Dream Team practice, where it was like the hardest game they played all Olympics long was that practice game against each other.
Yes.
And it was egos clashing, and they were going hard, and they were fouling hard, and there was no give, and it was not like it's practice. No, they were getting after it, and they played for pride, and they played for dominance, even against each other in practice.
Well, because they knew just because they were on the same team then, the rest of the season they weren't going to be.
And it was one of those things where it's like, we got, we're there. It was a bunch of big egos, and they had to establish a pecking order.
Because they wanted to be the best. Yeah, they wanted to be the best, but now everybody's like, they may want to be the best, but I'm just going to say this. Excuse me. I believe, in my opinion, that people play football at this point for money. I don't see people playing football for the love of football anymore. In my opinion. There are a few people like Dak. I would even put Joe Burrow in that group because I feel like Joe Burrow loves the game. And some other people. But I just really feel like, man, people are just not playing football just so they can get a good check. Because I don't see that level of wanting to be number one anymore. Because it's like what we talked about with the Dream Team. It reflects in these All-Star games. I just don't see anyone wanting to be number one. I see guys who want to go out there and get notoriety, get a brand, make money. But I don't see anyone being like, oh, I want to play football because I want to win and be number one anymore.
You can still find those people if they're the ones taking pay cuts to play.
Exactly. Brady.
But Dak held out for money. I mean, he might still want to play for love of the game, but he could have just been like, you know what? I'm just happy to be a Cowboy, and I want to play football and be a quarterback.
I think there's a difference between, and I know that you don't see it this way because you don't feel it, but in my perspective, there's a difference between holding out for money you've earned and then holding out for money you just want. There's a difference there. You may not feel that Dak has earned it. I don't have a problem with that. I disagree with it, but I don't have a problem with that. But that's my viewpoint. I think that's what it was.
I think he has earned some amount of money, but the amount of money that he was paid, he definitely did not earn.
Well, his offensive line had a hand in that.
Again, that's neither here nor there. That's not the topic of this one. We'll save that for next semester when we get back to Cowboys football.
Yep.
Well, another year, one more All-Star game to go, the NBA.
Yeah.
And we'll have to see how all the ratings pan out. But I think we can safely assume that
they won't be good.
It's not going to be good.
No.
And so that'll do it for NBA, or really all All-Star
games. Yeah.
And so coming up next, of course, we've got spicy lawsuits going on in the NFL among coaches, various coaches, but the most prominent, of course, is Brian Flores. So don't go anywhere because we are going to kind of take a look at that and see where it all stands.
Be fly.
We'll be back. Welcome back to the main event. Ryan Baldwin, Mason Shepard, actually using this audio instead of the camera audio. It's a test run. We're getting there. It's going to be okay.
Let's hope so.
We're going to get it eventually. So now...
Speaking of getting it.
Speaking of getting there. Brian Flores.
B-Fly or B-Flow.
The former Miami Dolphins head coach who was released this past offseason.
Undeservingly,
yes. He had a couple winning records. Well, it came out that one Bill Belichick texted him that he was going to be getting the Giants head coaching job.
Until he realized he had texted the wrong Brian.
He had texted the wrong Brian, and the Brian that was actually going to get hired was Brian Doble from the Bills. And now Brian Flores has come out with a lawsuit against the NFL.
And those specific teams.
Yes. Alleging that there is... let me find it. Racism in hiring, and that he was never actually his interview was never actually responsibly considered, let's say, for the Giants. And that his interview was just a sham interview to fill the quota as described in the NFL's Rooney Rule.
Even with the Broncos, because he's suing the Broncos because when he showed up for his interview, they were an hour late, and it turns out that they were out the night before drinking and getting drunk. So it already shows that they weren't showing his interview the proper respect in time for preparation either. And of course, he's suing the Dolphins because the owner came down and said, hey, we want a better spot in the draft, so we need you to start taking some losses, but I'll give you $100,000 for every game that you lose.
Now, that is alleged. This is all alleged.
Ryan.
So far. You get, we are in America, guilty until proven innocent.
All right, fine.
This is alleged.
That's a very specific thing to make up.
Sure.
And like, how specific can you get?
And we can talk about how big this is if it's true, but we can't put out that it is true yet.
But legally, I get that, because technically that's slander saying that it is. Look, Ryan, if it comes out to be true, which again I say it's a very specific thing to make up, that is, especially with the Dolphins thing, that opens the door because there are a lot of NFL conspiracy theorists that go back to the 2014 game with the Seahawks and the Patriots and say Pete threw that game away. There's a lot of conspiracy theorists that Carolina purposefully didn't show up to play the best because they wanted Peyton to win on his way out. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about stuff like that we usually just go, that's it, that's stupid. But if this is proven to be true, some of that stuff has some validity to it. Because maybe not the Carolina thing, but at least the Seahawks, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, but at least the Seahawks and the Patriots thing, that gains a little bit more. I'm not saying it's going to be proven to be true, but I'm just saying it makes it a little, more legit.
But this is more like, individual owners as opposed to, and like, why would the Seattle's owner tell Pete Carroll to throw a Super Bowl?
No,
you're not getting a better draft pick out of it.
It's less of the owner telling him to do it and more of like league execs. You know,
but this stuff is the stuff that's
no,
being
I know.
against
I'm
the
just
owners.
saying it could. What I'm saying is it could open the door to that type of corruption actually being able to be taken seriously instead of looked at, as strictly a conspiracy theory, which again,
sure,
it still kind of is. But I'm just saying, and again, I keep saying this because saying that he came to me offering me, because again, it's very specific, $100,000. You just don't make that type of figure up. Or for every loss that we take, you don't make that type of stuff up. And here's the thing. Brian Flores, I guarantee he's a smart man. He knows that there's no chance he's winning this lawsuit. He knows he's not winning this. But he's doing this because there is a problem. The only black coach in the league is Mike Tomlin. It's about to be Lovie Smith too. But the only one with a successful when I say successful, I don't mean in terms of wins and losses. I mean in being able to still keep a job, which is a shame I have to keep saying that, is Mike Tomlin. Before him, it was Marvin Lewis, who was there for 16 years.
Never forget Tony Dungy. He had a successful career.
I don't mean...
You mean right now?
Right now, and also not successful in terms of accolades, in terms of being able to keep a job. Yes, Tony did have a good career. I think, and I'm not trying to split hairs and go into semantics, but I think there were times where people forgot Dungy was black, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying, and I'm not knocking Tony. I love Tony Dungy. He's one of my favorite coaches of all time. I'm just saying, you know how American media can be. But with, Brian Flores and these teams, for one, the Giants thing, absolutely despicable. And again, I'm saying that like it's been proven true yet, but still, it's absolutely despicable. And I mean, there is the text, but for that, I just feel like they were trying to meet a quota. And that's the thing. A lot of these owners and teams only interview black coaches to meet a quota. They want to meet a quota, and when they have no choice but to sign the black guy that's qualified, because let's face it, there are a lot of brilliant black minds in the sport of football. And you mean to tell me those minds don't deserve to be head coaches? That's wrong. And I think, and again, this isn't about affirmative action. It's not about, okay, we're going to hand you this job because of your race. This is about, okay, who is qualified? Who can do a good job? And Brian Flores was doing a serviceable job with Miami. What was Miami going to do? Go to another Super Bowl? It was never going to happen unless they gave him time. Keep in mind, Miami knocked off some playoff teams this last season. Mm-hmm. And I think it's one of those things where if you're going to not give this guy his proper respect, not give this guy his proper respect, that's on you. And I think with Brian Flores doing this, he's not doing this because he's trying to win, because he knows with the NFL and the lawyers that they have, it's more than likely not going to happen. But he's doing this because he's trying to highlight a particular issue, which is there are not a lot of minority head coaches, especially black head coaches. Some people's arguments, because I've seen them and I've just shaking my head at them. Well, there's been more black head coaches than like Hispanic head coaches or maybe Native American head coaches. Why don't you guys push for something about that? Well, see, here's the thing, right? No one is saying that it's just strictly black coaches who need to be hired. There are coaches of all minorities that need to be hired and considered that are not. But the most prevalent are black coaches. So deal with it. I just think with this Brian Flores situation, The only way, and I'm not going to talk about winning because, again, he's not going to. The only way that this can gain some real steam and this won't just seem like some angry black man who lost his job is if we get players to get behind him and the Players Association. You know, people to stick their necks out and be like, this guy's right. This has been a problem. Because, again, a lot of these guys today, they care about this. You know, some of them stuck by Colin. A lot of them didn't because they wanted this. And I think with Flores, he's going to need people to back him. Not, again, I keep saying this, not so he can win, but so this cannot just be passed over. You know, because, again, it would be very easy for them to be like, okay, this is just a black guy who lost his job, so he's trying to be mad at the white man about it. This is someone who's like, this is a real problem. We need to talk about it. And if suing you is the only way that I'm going to be able to get it discussed, so be it.
So I think the main issue here that this kind of stems from is the Rooney Rule.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the spirit of the Rooney Rule is good, right? It's supposed to guarantee that minority coaches at least get a shot at head coaching jobs. And as it's gone along, now you get compensatory picks if you develop a minority coach and they go to head coach somewhere else. Like San Francisco, their offensive coordinator is going to be a head coach. I don't remember where they just signed. And so they're getting a second, third round pick.
Yeah.
The problem is in the execution of it, right?
Yes.
And so, for example, let's take the Giants. They hired the assistant GM from the Bills.
Yeah.
So naturally, their first choice was going to be from the Bills organization.
Yeah.
Because they felt that was going to be the best pick.
Yeah.
So the Rooney Rule then states that even if you're like, you know what, we want Doble, we know he's our number one pick because he knows the assistant GM, he fits, and we think he's going to be the best person for the new job. We have to conduct these interviews that don't mean anything with minority coaches from outside the organization. And it's not just, every coach is going to get a sham interview if you have somebody that's set already. And it's like, if we're going to be nerdy about it, let's pretend like we are casting in a movie. Imagine if we were casting the new Wolverine movie for the first time. We're like, man, Hugh Jackman is like Wolverine. Like, we know, we want him. But Hollywood says that I also have to audition Wesley Snipes because it's a minority. Wolverine has never been black in the comics. Wesley Snipes would not make a good Wolverine, but I have to audition him because and that's basically what the Rooney Rule is.
Yeah.
The spirit of it is good. The execution means that in a situation like this, where Brian Doble was going to be the first choice because he was in the Bills organization and they felt he was the best pick.
Yeah.
That meant that they had to go ahead and bring in Flores and at least one other minority coach. And it looks like a sham because Bill Belichick came out and said, "Oh yeah, congratulations. Oh wait, it was Brian Doble."
I think the thing is, the only thing, and it was an okay analogy. The only problem with using that is what you said. Wolverine's never been black. So the idea to do that would already be, I mean, the difference is that even Wesley Snipes, I think, would be like, they're not going to cast me, but I'll do it anyway. Flores went with the intent of, I may be able to get this job. And listen, you make a good point. I can't dispute that. If they've already got somebody in mind, they have to do these interviews anyway.
Right, but I picked the Wolverine thing like there's an idea of what Wolverine is.
You want, and then you have
that's the same thing. Yeah, once they hired the Bills GM, the idea of what they wanted was, we want Brian Doble because you worked with him before, you recommended him highly. Yeah. And so that's where it kind of came
from. Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. I think the only reason I think he can, like I said, this is not a case made to win, because a lawyer could prove that in the courtroom there, and that part would be over. But what it is that even this is my thing. I think what the Giants still could have done is they could have told Flores, listen, we've already chosen our head coach. But if you want to still interview and we could put you as a coordinator, that's different. Even though this was supposed to, because here's the thing.
But you can't legally do that under the Rooney Rule.
You can't legally do that. Yeah, no, I know. You can't legally do that, but I'm just saying, because, and the reason why, the reason I keep going back to there's no way that this is a case to win is because you can't get around what you brought up.
Yeah.
You can't get around the fact that, okay, by the Rooney Rule, I have to have you in here.
Yeah.
And if, we've already chosen our guy, then obviously your interview's not going to mean anything.
Right.
There's no way that you can get around that. But I think, and again, I guess it's one of these things where it's like context, where it's like Belichick came out in that text, and so now it looks really, really bad because it's like, oh, they were just playing this guy. But then it's like, well, if you understand the Rooney Rule, it's like, well, they weren't playing him. They had to.
Yeah.
But I think...
Now, you could argue, and I think rightfully so, that there should be less of a right away, like, this is my first deal, and that everybody should be.
100%. But
to think that it's just disingenuous to think that GMs don't go in with a first choice right away.
Oh, without a doubt.
Like, it's disingenuous to think that, and and not saying it doesn't happen, but if somebody in any, not just the NFL, any sport, any job, business, if they have a first choice that they know they're going to go with, you have to go in and you have to blow them completely out of the water to change their mind. Yeah,
and I think the thing with that is that, it's one of those things where you can say, right, that, well, maybe they should wait until the whole process. There is no team or job that if they've got their first pick right in front of them, they're going to go, oh, yeah, we're going to wait until this is over. Because that would be the only way to make this Rooney Rule fair, would be like, okay, you have to wait until the process is over to pick this guy. That's never going to happen.
I mean, technically, yeah, but no one's going to come out and say, oh, yeah, I picked,
Yeah, exactly. That was never going to happen.
Yeah.
I think with the Giants case, now the Dolphins case, that's still on the table. That's a whole other thing. But with the Giants case, Denver's its own thing. But with the Giants case, after listening to you talk about it, because I know about the Rooney Rule, but I never knew the specifics. I just knew it was to meet a quota. I think that Flores made that's a one fatal mistake in making this case, because no offense to you and your capabilities, you're a college student on a radio show who was able to make that point. I'm pretty sure a trained attorney is going to be able to make that point in a court of law.
Yeah.
Like that, there's no way to not prove that. But as far as the Dolphins go, or as far as any of this stuff, but I think the reason why nobody's really saying that, what you brought up, is because that still doesn't change the fact, because black people still do not get a fair shot to be head coaches. They just don't. Except for rare, Tomlin, Lewis, Dungy.
I think it's specifically, the NFL, though, really has a problem with it. Like, the NBA has quite a few.
No, exactly.
I think there's more minorities, like, not less black, but overall more minorities in baseball, because now there's a lot of Hispanic bench managers and stuff, and Ron Washington was around for a long time. So there's a lot of diversity in baseball as well.
Even if you want to look at basketball and just minorities, Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah. There's a lot of minorities in basketball, but it's the NFL for whatever reason that has an issue with it.
It's simply, and this is my opinion, and it involves race, but then again, so does this whole thing. White owners just don't want a black man to be the face of their management. As far as team management. Obviously management is ownership, but I'm just saying they don't want them to be the face of that management. The reason why Mike Tomlin can get away with it is because if you look at Mike Tomlin, he is the representative of Pittsburgh, in my opinion. He's tough, he's gritty, and he wants to win, and he's a champion, right? He represents Pittsburgh, so getting rid of him does nothing.
Right.
Marvin Lewis, even though Cincinnati, up until now, which I kind of hate, I'm not going to lie, I wish this was Marvin Lewis leading this team, but it's not. You can't cry over spilled milk. But Marvin Lewis being there, I'm not going to say he was the representative of Cincinnati, because if he was, that's an insult to Cincinnati. But it would still be for Marvin Lewis in the sense of everybody liked him, everybody trusted him, and he still had that fire to him, and you believed in him. Because I remember watching Hard Knocks, you believed that he was going to get the Bengals ready for the Super Bowl they're about to be in now, even though back then we knew it wasn't going to happen. But that's the thing. They liked him, just like the Steelers organization. They liked Tomlin, despite what Terry Bradshaw says to the contrary. But all these other teams don't want a black man to be the face of that. And that's disappointing. Because you can't tell me that they don't care about that when, I'm sorry, this guy who has never been a head coach before. Well, I'm not saying that because there are a lot of people that have been head coaches. You're never going to tell me this guy who wasn't like Shanahan's son, Mike, where Kyle Shanahan, where, yeah, Shanahan was never head coach before, but he was a coordinator. And we saw what he was capable of doing. And we saw that this guy I think he can be good at leading a team. And then he became one, and the 49ers have been to a Super Bowl, and they've been to the playoffs kind of consistently. That worked. But you can't tell me every one of those guys is better than a Brian Flores or a Lovie Smith or, any of the other Jim Caldwell, any of these other black coaches that have not been really given a chance. Keep in mind, wasn't Flores only there for like 2 seasons?
Yes.
That is not enough time to get a team where you want them to be. That's not enough time. Todd Bowles with the Jets. People forget the Jets. There were the Jets, but with Todd Bowles, the Jets actually were doing kind of well. They're nowhere close to playoffs, but it was kind of like Jim Caldwell with the Lions. They weren't the worst, but it was like, they're doing okay. They're floundering, but they're still swimming above water in that type of sense. But they just don't want that person to be the face. And in my opinion, because you can't look at every single guy that gets to be, a head coach and say, okay, yeah, this guy with his experience, he can be a head coach. No. And I think it comes down to teams not really understanding what a coach is, a head coach. Because they think, oh, just get in a guy who knows football. It's a lot more than that. And look at the Browns, right? Hugh Jackson, right? Because he and the defensive, not even offensive, the defensive coordinator, because he and Hugh Jackson were disagreeing with each other, and it was captured on the Cleveland Browns Hard Knocks. And instead of being like, this black man is your head coach, we follow his lead on the field, and if you don't like that, you can leave. Not that the defensive coordinator was coming from a racist place. He was just coming, because he just didn't agree. But it doesn't matter. He's coordinator. This is coach. Coordinator follows coach. They released them both.
Well, there was also the deal where now Hugh Jackson's coming out saying that the Cleveland owner was paying him to throw games as well.
Yeah.
It was all part of their long plan, and maybe he had gotten rid. But it's getting to be really messy, too, because now the Giants are firing back at Brian Flores, saying that everything he said is false. The text that Bill Belichick gave to him was before Coach Dabble's in-person interview even took place. And then Elway's firing back at him, saying the reason we were disheveled is because we came from an interview on an overnight flight from Denver into Providence to meet you in the morning because it was the only time that you gave us to fit in. So it's all a mess.
Yeah, but again,
and it's a lot of he said, she said. I'm sure the truth is somewhere right there in the middle, because that's how it always goes here.
She said, but again, it's not easy to make up, oh yeah, they came in an hour late and were drunk, versus we came in an hour late because we were taking a flight from Providence.
Well, no, I think it was an hour late, but they said like they had been, not that they were drunk, but it looked like they had been drinking all night.
Yeah, stuff like that. But it was, well, I shouldn't say it was discovered, but I mean, you can't just throw in, oh yeah, they were celebrating really hard on a Saturday. That's not something that you can easily make up in that type of sense, because that can easily be disproven. Easily.
Right. But
the Belichick text can easily be disproven. Easily. Because if you look at the text, it'll tell you the date. Yeah. So it'll be like, okay, no, this was not sent before. This was after. And again, we don't have his phone, so we can't see that. All I'm
Right.
saying is, I get what you're saying as far as like this is he said, she said, none of it has been definitively proven in a court of law. But what I'm saying is, and this isn't legal because we all know that emotion and stuff like that has no place in the courtroom. This is strictly, so court of public opinion, which is the most powerful court in society.
Good old social media.
You can't make stuff, in my opinion, you can't make stuff like this up. It's too descriptive. It's too, I'm not going to say too legit, because if it's false, it's obviously not legit, but it's too in your face. Because you can't, again, with the Dolphins scenario, you can't say, for example, the Dolphins owner came to me, said, let's start throwing some games so we could get a better draft spot, and offered me $100,000 per loss. That is so descriptive. You cannot just make that up.
I think I agree with you on that one.
The Broncos one, we can argue about that.
I think with the Broncos and the Giants, it's a perception thing where
yes,
they're both
I will
right,
agree with you
where
on that.
Like he feels disrespected because they showed up an hour late and they looked disheveled, and they're like, we showed up an hour late and disheveled because we had to catch an overnight flight from Denver to Rhode Island and then showed up at the only time you gave us to meet you.
The only problem with that is I feel like that would have been communicated. That's my only problem with that being like, oh, this is bullshit. My bad. I'm sorry.
I'll have to cut that one out too.
I'm sorry. I'm getting passionate about this. That's my only problem with this being like, okay, this is fabricated, is because that is something that you can communicate. Like if I'm John Elway, and this is just me, if I'm Elway, I would, if we got there late, or even before being there late, I would tell Flores, hey, we're gonna be late because of this time frame. Or when I get there, more specifically, hey, I'm sorry, I know you've been here, I know we're an hour late.
Well, they might have. We don't know the exact
the
stuff
thing
that
again,
transpired in that.
Again, the reason I don't believe that they did, me personally, is because, again, if they did that, Flores, I think he's smart enough to know if he wants to really move this case forward, that wouldn't have validity. If they already had that conversation, we're an hour late because Providence, blah, 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 and disheveled, that has no validity in a court of law. This doesn't go anywhere.
Well, he just said he felt disrespected by it. So even if they messaged him, you can say, well, I still feel disrespected that you show up an hour late, even if you messaged me, because it's a big interview.
But even then, when you're dealing with a court of law where stuff has to be proven to reach a decision, or in this case, stuff has to be proven to make change, it moves into the layer of, okay, because again, what I don't want, and this is personally, I don't want this to be angry black man who lost his job. I want this to be a black man who's angry because he lost his job and he knows that it will happen to other people if he doesn't stand up and speak out about it. But again, with, Denver, that is something that can be proven. And I'm pretty sure his lawyer told him. That's why I accept what you're saying. And I'm not saying that it's not true because we don't know, we weren't there. But I can't see a smart attorney telling Flores, yeah, sure, because you felt disrespected even though they communicated this to you, and you being disrespected by this fact, not opinion or emotional response, but fact. You being disrespected by this fact that they were going to be an hour late, this fact that they're disheveled because of the flights they had to take, this fact that, just because they weren't there, you felt disrespected. Take that into a court of law and it will help your case. My father was a prosecutor. It won't. That holds no weight. Him feeling disrespected holds no weight in court. It won't, because that's an emotional response to what happened. That is not going to hold up. If he really did have, with the Giants thing, even if that was the case, and it was like, oh, I feel hurt because this is just a sham, and I don't agree with it being a sham, that does not hold up in court. That does not help this case. So what it turns into is, okay, this black man made some ridiculous claims, and it's going to make it harder for black head coaches to make it if this stuff turns out to be false. Because it will be then, okay, so this guy was really just trying to get money out of these people, and he didn't prepare a proper case, and he made all this stuff up and presented it in a court of law that was easily able to be disproven, and his lawyer just let him do it.
Well, here's the other thing. You can think as a lawyer that you have a rock solid case, and then it turns out that you, like, based on your client's description, you can go like, we got this, right?
Yeah.
And then the Broncos can come back and say they, quote unquote, have pages of detailed notes, analysis, and evaluations from our interview demonstrate the depth of our conversation and sincere interest in Mr. Flores as a head coaching candidate. Our process was thorough and fair to determine the most qualified candidate for our head coaching position. Whether it was or not, pages of detailed notes, analysis, and evaluations is going to make it hard to prove that they came in hungover and uninterested.
That's my point.
So, like, you can, like, if I'm a lawyer and I'm looking at this case going, okay, sure, that looks great, and then all of a sudden Broncos come back with this that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
Now you're like, okay, maybe that wasn't the best idea, Mr. Flores.
That's my point.
I don't know. It's going to be messy. There's no way
escaping that.
I think the maybe the biggest issue he has is that he went off of Belichick's text, and Belichick has no connection to the Giants. That may be the biggest hole, and is that he's basing a lot of this off of that. And Belichick can speculate, and you can do whatever you want with that, but speculation isn't going to get you very far in a lawsuit.
Well, I would disagree with you there. Not about speculation not taking you far in a lawsuit. I would disagree that Belichick doesn't have any connections, because we all know some of these guys have friends and they tell each other stuff.
But if I'm applying
and plus
for
Belichick
a job,
was familiar with both of these guys.
Sure, but if I'm applying for a job at the Cowboys, then I'm not going to if Sean Payton says, yeah, you've got a job, then I'm not going to necessarily believe what Sean Payton says just because he used to coach at the Cowboys and has connections. Sean Payton may have no idea. He may have heard from Steven's dog walker that, yeah, they're going to go with Ryan Baldwin as head coach. And then he's like, oh, wow, okay. And then while Steven's like, maybe he may be a good choice to his dog walker, but the dog walker is like, oh, yeah, okay. So, there's a telephone there, and having Bill Belichick not actually be a part of the Giants organization and just have it be through hearsay does not strengthen his case, I think, as much as people think it does. It's not, it's definitely a piece of evidence that if you can make it work, it's good, but I don't think but when you it's not the break open case.
No, when you add context to it and the Rooney Rule and its specifications, in my opinion, that easily gets debunked. When you add Denver and their situation and you add the paperwork, that easily gets debunked because, again, Flores being disrespected does not hold up in a court of law.
Right.
Because emotions don't matter. It's all about the facts. And if the facts are that they communicated to Mr. Flores that they were going to be late because of that plane flight, and the facts are that they have the paperwork to prove that they did not show any, blatant uninterest in his interview, then all of this gets debunked. Now, the Miami case, completely different. But those two, that's why, and this is just my opinion, I was glad that he went with it, kind of, but I also didn't want him to, as far as the Broncos and the Giants, because of what you just said and all of that.
I think one of the most interesting things about this is he's filing it as a class action lawsuit, which allows, other coaches to possibly sign on to it if they can come forward with some other evidence as well. You might see some more coaches coming out in the next few months about this, or next few weeks even, but it's I don't see this going away anytime soon.
Oh, no.
Definitely something we'll keep an eye on, and definitely as more details come out back and forth and as this play out in the courts, this has, especially the with Hugh Jackson also bringing up the fact that the Cleveland Browns owner paid him games for tanking. If that is a league-wide issue, that is, because that theoretically puts, the NFL's partnership with gambling sites at risk. It puts them at risk. Get more lawsuits from these gambling sites and people that play on them because their owners are paying teams to throw games to that players are, that these people are betting on.
Yep.
So that opens the door for a whole other nest of things. And potentially, I don't think it would ever actually happen, but if things get bad enough, you could see them lose their antitrust status, which would have huge financial ramifications for them. And that would be, I think, in the end, because the NFL is a business and it's an entertainment business first and foremost, the only way that you get them to change is hit their pocketbook.
Yep.
Because that's the end goal, is to make money. And I think that would be the first step, would to actually put that into jeopardy.
Yeah.
Well, good discussion. I like it. We'll have to keep an eye on that, and more developing news. We'll keep an eye on that in the coming weeks. And coming up next, we have the NFL Hall of Famers finalists being announced. We'll take a look at the finalists, and only 6 of them are going to go.
Yep.
We're going to have to narrow it down.
Yep.
Don't go nowhere.
Nowhere.
We'll be right back.
All right.
Welcome back to the main event.
You know it.
Ryan Baldwin and Mason Shepard, as always.
Yep.
More sports stuff. Let's talk more sports. Oh, that was a quick cutout. It's first day. We're fine. Sorry. Hello, everybody. Still doing video. Still watching us. Thank you for tuning in. What did you do? I just kind of pulled it down a little too fast. It's fine. Everything's fine. No one will know. All right. Thursday.
Yes.
The 4 to 8. I had to look it up. I thought it was 6. It's not 6. Apparently, it's 4 to 8 members of the modern day finalists will go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yep.
They need at least an 80% vote.
Yep.
And we have
the stupid sports writers.
15 finalists.
Yep.
Starting with defensive end, most notably with the Vikings, but also played for the Chiefs, Bears, and Carolina Panthers. Jared Allen.
One of the best that I've ever seen. I used to do the cattle rope when I was a child. Jared Allen, I remember him. He was still along that upper echelon of defensive players where it was like, if you've got this guy on your end, you are completely and totally in for a long day. And I think that Jared Allen is one of those guys, because he hasn't won a ring, he's overlooked. But that guy caused some real chaos on the field. And I think that when you look at someone who was, and I think that was the best thing about Jared Allen growing up, was like he was always consistent. And it wasn't like, oh, he was always consistently average. He played at a high level every team he played on until he just got older. He was a consistent player, all around good guy. Wasn't he like a finalist for Walter Payton Man of the Year one year? I think he was.
So.
Yeah, he was like a finalist for Walter Payton Man of the Year. So I think Jared Allen deserves to be on this list. And he had to suffer like not going in first ballot, but it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, he will be a Hall of Famer. That's all that matters. 5
Pro Bowls, 4 first-team All-Pros,
Yep.
12th overall in sacks for the career.
That's impressive.
4th overall in tackles for loss.
Yes.
The Pro Football Reference website has a Hall of Fame monitor where they kind of compare to other players that have already gotten in.
Yes.
Their stats, their accolades,
Yes.
all that stuff. The average for Hall of Fame defensive ends is 104.83 points. They've got Jared Allen right now as 70.15 points. So I think maybe the fact that he didn't win a ring, didn't do any playoff stuff, kind of hurt. And then the fact that he had a lengthy career but was only All-Pro in 4. In 4 of them was kind of an issue, in 5 Pro Bowls.
But I think what they had to look at was like, think how many great defensive players have come to the NFL, and for him to be 12th in sacks is a big deal.
It's also, not to take away from him as a player, it's just there's a lot of good defensive ends in there.
Dude, Richard Seymour, we'll get to him. He's in this list.
Yeah, so...
So is Patrick Willis.
Am I confident about him getting in? Maybe. We'll have to see about the rest of them. But
after saying what you said, after bringing that up,
his numbers would say...
His numbers are good enough. but there's just a
accolades,
lot
maybe.
of guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys.
There's a lot of guys.
And
in
like,
his
I don't
list.
know if he's going to go over one of our guys coming up that we'll get to eventually. If you got to pick a defensive end.
Well, okay, here's my thing. And we'll get to him later too, but if he doesn't get in, I don't see Patrick Willis getting in this time around either. Because Willis didn't win anything either, but at least unlike Allen, Willis did get to a Super Bowl.
True.
That's a fact.
Next up, Willie Anderson, offensive tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals and Baltimore Ravens.
We're gonna
back in 96 to 2007 with the Bengals and 08 with the Ravens. So,
folks, we're gonna move. We're kind of gonna move. I mean, Ryan can talk about him, but we can move past this because I did not watch him growing up that often.
4 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros, and the Hall of Fame monitor has him at 59 versus the average Hall of Fame tackle at 95.37.
Nah.
Usually a lineman gets in the group, and the lineman pickings are quite slim this year. So
isn't Tony Baselli on this list?
Tony Baselli's also
I say
on the
Baselli
list.
will get in before Willie.
So we'll take a look at Baselli here in just a second. But before that, we have Rondé Barber.
You know, and that's the common thing. There are a lot of guys on this list who have not won the big one.
Yep.
But they've been to several Pro Bowls, and they were awesome at their position. Rondé...
15-year career, 5 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros, all with the Bucks.
Yeah.
Don't see that very often.
Nope.
3rd all-time in passes defended. 10th overall in solo tackles, which is impressive for the safety. He had 10 interceptions in 1 year, led the NFL back in 2001. And the Hall of Fame monitor has him at 84.93 with the Hall of Fame average for defensive back at 99.88. So a little bit below average, but better than what we've seen so far.
I think they'll let Rondé squeak by. I think they'll let him do it.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, you get 4 to 8. It's just based on, I was kind of looking at some of these before we got started, but it seems a lot of them are slightly below average, and that can trend 2 ways. That can either mean they expand it a little bit and say, you know what, we'll get these people 8, or they're very selective and they go with the minimum 4.
Yeah.
So if they go with the minimum 4, could be hard for Rondé to sneak in depending on how the rest of these
Oh no!
guys.
If they're gonna go with, that's the thing we don't know. But if they're gonna go with 4, Rondé's not getting in.
No,
because I don't think he deserves to be ahead of Reggie, or we'll get to him, or Andre. No.
Yeah. There's only one other defensive back besides him. So, well, maybe. I don't know. I don't think they usually make sure at least a position gets in there, except they usually get at least one offensive lineman in there.
No, they do get one offensive lineman in there.
So the closer offensive lineman I think that we talked about earlier is Tony Baselli, who was a tackle from 95 to 2001 with the Jaguars and 2002 with the Texans before going on injured reserve and retiring. 5 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros. So he was in a Pro Bowler in every year except for 2. Which is pretty good. Kind of a short career, but
that will hurt him. Based on how short his career is, I would say Willie would get in because his career was longer.
Yeah, but he did have the same number of Pro Bowls and All Pros in a shorter career.
No, he did. You know, but longevity means something.
You know, he does have the Hall of Fame monitor is rocking at 87.18 out of an average of 95.37. So the numbers would suggest that Baselli has a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah.
But
I would still expect him to get in over Billy, to be honest. I would expect that. Only just because, and it's what you brought up, he was able to do everything Willie did in a shorter amount of time.
Leroy Butler is our next one. Safety from 90 to 2001 with the Green Bay Packers.
He'll have to wait, I can already tell you.
Leroy Butler, 4 Pro Bowls, 4 first-team All-Pros. Nothing particularly exciting in the stats.
No.
91. He's got 38 career interceptions, which isn't bad, but that's 91 all time. It does have him as 90.5, slightly above Rondé Barber in terms of defensive back monitor. And I'm not, dude. I think he's got a Super Bowl.
Yeah, he has one.
And he was on the all 1990s team.
Yeah.
So for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So maybe slightly better career. But
No, Leroy will have to wait. They're not going to put him in there.
You think so?
Because
I bet Leroy would go over Rondé if they're going to pick one of the two.
if they were going to pick, they would pick Leroy over Rondé just because he would have that legacy of being that on that all 90s team with the Packers and winning a Super Bowl. But on stats alone, no, because his stats, like you said, they're not that impressive, and they are stat monsters for the Hall of Fame. So I just can't see them. But if it comes down between him and Rondé, then they're going to pick Leroy.
And then, just to be fair to Rondé, he was the second team all 2000s team, but that was second team, whereas Leroy was first team all 90s.
I think they'll give it to Leroy over Rondé.
And next up is, I think, somebody that is going to make it this year. I'm pretty confident. Devin Hester.
Oh, that's not even in question.
Return man. It says receiver, but really he was known as a return man.
He and Ted Ginn, they were called receivers. They were return guys.
4 Pro Bowls, 3 first-time All-Pro, and he has made the NFL Top 100 twice, the NFL 100 All-Time Team.
Yep.
And the Pro Football Hall of Fame All-2010s team, as well as the All-2000 team.
My childhood.
It does say, I do think that this is one of those ones where you can't always take it. Like the Hall of Fame monitor has a 49.4, but that's because they're comparing him to receivers because they don't have something to. Yeah. This man was a return monster.
Yeah, he's the best return man to ever play the game.
Yeah, and
you could argue he was the one who really turned special teams into something that people actually had to take seriously. They always did.
It brought that spark back to it,
it brought a spark back to it instead of being like, okay, this is special teams. Now it's like, okay, we really have to pay attention because think about it. Without Devin Hester, I don't think it has that luster of it being so important. And Devin Hester ran so many kicks back for touchdowns, or got his team in so good of a field position. And think about it, he's unique. Because as a wide receiver, no, there's nothing about him that stood out. But he's going in as a return man and a wide receiver. But I'm just saying, Hall of Fame return guy, I don't think the NFL or sports writers will pass a chance to put him on that list.
He is number 1 all-time in punt return touchdowns with 14. Number 9 overall with 5 total kick returns for touchdowns. And number 3 overall all-time in punt return yards.
Yep.
So
this he's going in.
Yeah, I think he's going in for sure. He was a special return man.
There will never be another Devin Hester.
And I think he's getting in too because like special teams is one of those ones that sometimes gets overlooked in the Hall of Fame.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
and I'm sure a lot of these guys are going to take that chance to be like, you know what, let's get somebody that actually made a difference in special teams, something we don't see very often. Let's get that guy in there now.
The closest guy I could, and I'm not saying to be of Hester's talent or caliber, but Matthew Slater on the Patriots. Someone who's a wide receiver by position, but he does a lot of his best work during special teams.
Yeah. Next up, Torrey Holt. Wide receiver for the Rams and Jags.
He was going in because he was on the greatest show on earth team.
Greatest show on turf, baby. Second team all 2000s, 1999 all rookie team, 7 Pro Bowls, 22nd overall in receptions, 16th overall in receiving yards, 39 overall in receiving touchdowns, which kind of...
The numbers aren't impressive, but he won a Super Bowl. He was on the greatest show on turf.
Yep. And the 7 Pro Bowls is pretty big, too.
But he was still one of the best receivers in the game.
Oh, yeah.
So he'll get in. Especially since Kurt, I was about to say Angle and say wrestling, but Kurt Warner, we see him constantly on TV. There was just a movie made about him. Kurt Warner will get him in.
Yeah. The Pro Football Reference Monitor has him at 106.22 versus the average wide receiver of 104.62.
Oh, yeah.
The first person we've seen over the average.
Which makes sense.
He's definitely, but of the people we looked at so far, he's probably the second favorite minus Hester. Like Hester and then Holt would be 1, 2, right?
Yeah, he's the second for sure guy that we know. Yeah. They're going to put him in.
The second, if you're going to rank guys in terms of confidence, right now he's right below Hester in terms of people that you're likely pretty sure to get in.
Yeah.
And then next up, Andre Johnson, receiver for the Houston Texans from 2003 to 14.
Yep.
The Colts in 2015 and the Titans in 2016. 16.
You know, with Andre, and again, we're going to my childhood here, the only way that I feel like he has because he's reviewed as one of the best receivers to really play this game, especially from the 2000s and 2010s. What helps Andre is that my cousin, Calvin Johnson, got in. Calvin hadn't won Super Bowls either, but Calvin broke records of Jerry Rice. That's huge. Calvin broke records, and I think if I'm going to be honest here, I don't see them putting, because technically Hester counts as a receiver, I don't see them putting 3 receivers in because it would have to be Hester. No, it would be 4 because it would be Hester, Wayne, Holt, and Johnson. So unfortunately, even though I got a soft spot for Andre because I grew up with him and I loved watching him with Houston, and he was always so reliable, so clutch.
Yeah.
He's going to have to wait it out because they're not going to put 4 in.
I don't think so either.
They're not putting in 4.
There's quite a few other good candidates, and
I just brought Reggie Wayne's in this.
Numbers are not nearly as. I mean, I think some of them are slightly better. They kind of evens out with Torrey Holt, but the fact that Holt won a Super Bowl is always a big that. It sucks for a lot of players.
Yeah,
but winning that Super Bowl is always
it puts you over the top, especially when you were. Let's put it like this. Not every player who retires gets considered for the Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah. A majority don't.
Exactly. That's my point. So for Leroy Butler to be considered and the fact that he's won a Super Bowl and he was on the 90s Packers team, he's in.
Yep.
The fact that Torrey Holt was on the Greatest Show on Turf team and won a Super Bowl and was one of the best wide receivers, he's in. Andre Johnson played for the Houston Texans, who still weren't winning anything.
No.
He's not getting in. I love Andre, but he's going to have to wait. But this is his first time around, and first-time-arounders always have to wait.
Except for some rare occasions.
Except rare occasions, yes.
Next up, Sam Mills, linebacker from 86 to 94 with the New Orleans Saints and 95 to 97 with the Carolina Panthers. 5 Pro Bowls, 1 All-Pro, and second team All-90s.
He'll wait.
He's
not that on stats alone, not that special. Not saying he wasn't a great player,
solo tackles, he's not even anywhere close to like the top.
That's what I'm saying.
Which you really kind of want for. I mean, he's 22nd overall in combined tackles, which isn't bad, but that's not something you're really looking for for a linebacker.
He'll have to wait. I'm surprised. Honestly, with stuff like that, I'm surprised he made it this far. But
59.78 on the Hall of Fame monitor, and the average for an inside linebacker is 113.9.
Not even close.
So well below average. And there's a couple other linebackers that probably are going to make it in before he is.
Without a doubt.
So Richard Seymour is our next one, defensive end / defensive tackle from 01 to 08 with the Patriots and 09 to 12 with the Oakland Raiders.
Yep.
Let me get them stats up real quick here. Started falling behind. We were going too fast. Here we go. Richard Seymour. 7 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros. Pretty darn good. Official sacks, 57.5 for the career, but he also played defensive tackle, so not really that, a shining stat. 60th overall in career tackles for loss at 91. That's not too shabby. I think the 7 Pro Bowls is pretty good.
And he's got some rings on him.
He's got some rings because he played for those 2000s Patriots.
Yeah, he's got rings on him.
Yeah, and he is... he's a first-team All-2000s team and made the 2011 NFL Top 100 and the 2001 NFL All-Rookie team. So he's got some awards there. The Hall of Fame monitor has him at 98.85 with the defensive end average of 104.83. So pretty good.
Richard will get in.
The problem is, again, there's a couple of big names on defense that we're gonna get to that is gonna make it difficult. Like. Well, let's just keep going, and then we can argue all those at the end.
Yeah.
Next up, Zach Thomas, linebacker from 96 to 2007 with the Dolphins, and then spent 1 year with the Dallas Cowboys. And we have here 7 Pro Bowls, 4 first-team All-Pros, 5th overall in career solo tackles. Pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
5th overall in total combined tackles, led the league twice. 110 in career tackles for loss, so not too shabby. But playing for the Dolphins back then was actually not that bad of a thing. And he did make the All-2000s team as well. I don't know. It's
he'll wait. They'll make him wait.
He's probably more likely to get in than Sam Mills, at least
yeah.
In terms of linebackers that
when
we've
you
looked
read
at
off
so
Sam
far.
Mills stats, I was like, no.
Yeah. In terms of the Hall of Fame honor has him at 113.8, with the average being 113.91.
Yeah.
So he's right in line with the Hall of Fame average. So
they might let him in.
He's up over Sam Mills, but it kind of depends on how these next people
the other people go.
Yeah, because
we've got a few for sure.
Next one is, I don't see any way that he is not a for sure. And it may be a little bit of bias, but good old DeMarcus Ware has a Super
He's a
Bowl
Cowboy
with the
for life.
Broncos.
I don't care what you Bronco fans say.
9-time Pro Bowler,
Yes.
4-time All-Pro,
Yes.
All 2000s team.
Yes.
He is the ninth. He is ninth overall in career sacks with 138.5, fourth overall in tackles for loss.
Yes.
And then 15th overall in forced fumbles.
So top 20 in forced fumbles, top 5 in tackles for loss, and top 10 in sacks. Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And has a ring. Hall of Famer.
And has a ring. And
without a doubt.
This does say he's listed at 96.3 with the average outside linebacker at 106.4. But man, I think this
that's when you just ignore that.
That's one.
He's in the top. Think about it. He's in the top 20, top 10, top 5 of all time.
Yep.
And he's got a ring.
Mm-hmm.
No question. Hall of Famer. No question.
And maybe somebody can come up with a valid argument, but I can't see it.
There's not a.
And I know that
DeMarcus Ware.
Maybe a little bit of
when
Dallas
I was
bias,
growing up, there was not, and this includes Jared Allen. There was not a better DN than DeMarcus Ware.
No,
not a better one.
Next receiver up on the list is Reggie Wayne.
He should get in. Because Marvin got in, Reggie needs to be there.
2001 to 14, all with the Indianapolis Colts.
Because it's Reggie.
6 Pro Bowls,
yes.
Only 1 All-Pro. Top 10 all-time in receptions.
Yes.
Top 10 all-time in receiving yards.
Yes.
27th overall in receiving touchdowns.
Remember, he was playing opposite of Marvin.
True. Does make it difficult.
Yeah, and he also had Dallas Clark later on. But, when you play opposite of Marvin Harrison, you're not going to always get the ball.
This has him at the Hall of Fame monitor, 108.14, with the average wide receiver, 104.62.
Reggie's getting in.
He's right up there with Torrey Holt.
Reggie, in my opinion, he's past Torrey. His numbers are better, except maybe that last one, but still, he was playing opposite Marvin Harrison.
Yeah.
His numbers are better, and he's got a ring. Reggie's getting in.
It's tough to argue with it, but
it's very tough to argue when the stats back it up.
Maybe
Reggie's getting in. If the only way Reggie would not get in is because we don't see him anymore, like he's not on TV, because that does play a big part. But Reggie should get in. Reggie's got the numbers, and he was that good. I remember growing up watching Reggie. He was phenomenal.
And then next up, linebacker Patrick Willis from 07 to 14 with the San Francisco 49ers.
One of my all-time favorites.
7-time Pro Bowler, 5-time first-team All-Pro.
Yep.
AP Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2007.
Yep.
Pro Football Hall of Fame, all 2010s team.
Yep.
46th overall in solo tackles.
Yeah.
99th overall in combined tackles.
Yeah.
So the stats aren't fantastic, but the number of the Pro Bowls and the first team All-Pros suggest that he was a good player for pretty much his entire
career.
career.
You watch Patrick Willis play, and again, this is like Reggie. We don't hear from Patrick Willis anymore. When you watch Patrick Willis play, like I did, growing up, next to Ray Lewis, he was the most feared man to wear number 52. In my time, I'm not including LT. He was the most feared man to wear number 52. And I think, I remember growing up when Clay Matthews first broke in. It was the 3 number 52s. It was Ray Lewis, it was Clay Matthews, and it was Patrick Willis. Patrick Willis was a dominant force, and he is someone that deserves to get in. And honestly, above those other linebackers, I'm taking Patrick Willis because I remember how dominant he was, and I remember how consistent he was, and I remember that he's been to the Super Bowl and been involved in playoff games.
Yep.
I'm taking Patrick Willis every day. And plus, being on the Pro Football Hall of Fame 2010's all-time team, come on.
He played 8 seasons.
Yes.
Really 7.5 because he only played 6 games in his last season.
Yeah.
And made the Pro Bowl in his first 7 seasons.
Yeah.
So
he should get in.
He was a top linebacker every year that he played.
Every year.
And
he should get in.
Yeah, that's
no
going to be a
questions
tough
asked.
one to argue too.
You can't tell me that, what was it, Zach Thomas and Sam Mills look better on paper than Patrick Willis.
It's a fair point. And then the last finalist is Bryant Young.
I think he'll wait.
Defensive end, D-tackle, 94 to 2007 with the San Francisco 49ers.
There's so many defensive tackles and ends.
Yeah.
This is the way I think it's going to go. When we're giving out the list of 8, because I think they have to let more people in than 4. Because that's ridiculous in my opinion. 6 maybe. DeMarcus Ware, Devin Hester. They got to put Torrey Holt in there. I think they're going to put Leroy Butler in there because they got to have an old school pick. Linemen, I think they're going to go Tony Baselli, Patrick Willis, Reggie Wayne, and then the last one, if we're going to 8 specifically, what are the other ones? Because right now I'm at 7, and I think they may go with 7.
Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, Rondé Barber, we said Butler, Andre Johnson, Sam Mills, Richard Seymour, Zach Thomas, and Bryant Young.
I think they would give it to Seymour over Allen because Seymour has those rings.
I don't know if I had to go. I don't know if those guys stack up with the other 7 that you put.
Yeah,
so maybe
that's
it's those
my point.
7.
Yeah,
and I think
I think I agree with you. I'm just going to cut mine down to 7. So Ware, Hester, Wayne, Willis, Leroy Butler, Willie Anderson. Tony Baselli. And that the 7th one that I had, what was the 7th one that I had? Can you run down the list again?
Yeah. Because I was going to see if it's I don't know.
Torrey Holt. That was the 7th. Torrey Holt. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's I wanted to see because it's I know I saw it was 80%. Like you had to get an 80% vote. I don't know if that's yes, they deserve it, or no, they don't, or if they you have to do if they go to each one, or they're saying rank each person, and if each person gets X amount. I assume it's a yes, no, for if they're doing an 80% vote that they, that these writers have to do. Typically, it's a yes, they deserve it, but it's a tough 7 to judge.
I think that would be the best choice. Because you don't need people in the Hall of Fame, Sam Mills, and people go, who?
I think Baselli gets in because he's a lineman, and they usually do a lineman.
Yes.
Devin Hester for sure. Let's go through the for sures. Baselli, Hester, Ware, and then
Reggie's
I'm
a for
stuck
sure.
Between Reggie and Torrey.
I think they got to let them both in. Reggie's a for sure. Because here's my thing: you can't snub Reggie 2 years in a row.
I'm just go with Baselli, Hester, Holt, Ware, Willis, Wayne. 6.
Yeah,
I'm going 6.
I think we're gonna get 6 to 7 in that ballpark.
I think those guys are just a step above everybody else. Rondé Barber had a great career. Leroy Butler had a great career. But
Andre
I think
Johnson
those guys,
did too. Yeah,
all those guys. Maybe Butler sneaks in as 7, but
I think Butler will be on that Packers team.
I think just those 6 for sure just were a step above.
Yeah.
The rest of the team or the rest of the finalists. But again, it's not like this is a make or break for any of these guys. A lot of these guys can come back next year.
Yeah.
And
plus, they're still going to be considered NFL legends. They're being considered for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Again, there were a lot of guys who played for the 90s Packers team. Not everybody's being considered for it.
Right. Well, Thursday. On
Thursday.
the 10th. Those will be announced, and then I guess we can take a look and
judge our opinion on how they chose it.
Yeah, and figure out if we were right or wrong. It'll be interesting to see. But don't go anywhere because we got one more segment we're going to finish up with.
Mount
It's going to
Rushmore.
be our Mount Rushmore of tight ends. Don't go nowhere.
You mean?
Welcome back to the main event. Ryan Baldwin, Mason Shepard.
What up?
With another fantastic Mount Rushmore segment.
Oh, yeah.
One of our favorite segments on the show.
Uh-huh.
And this week, we had to do some soul searching.
Yeah, we did.
Because tight ends do not come easily to the Mount Rushmore / Hall of, whatever kind of talk you want. You got to be special. Tight ends are like the tool that is always in your toolbox that you never think about, but then when you need it, you're like, all right, I have that one. And then
Wow.
Tell me I'm wrong, though.
No, you're not. So, my list, of course, my number one, Shannon Sharp.
Number one,
Shannon Sharp.
Uncle Shay Shay.
Uncle Shay Shay. Shannon Sharp, because Shannon Sharp really was, if you look at it, he was the guy who turned tight end into, you could call it that fifth wide receiver spot.
You don't have Kyle Pitts without Shannon Sharp.
No, you do not have Kyle Pitts without Shannon Sharp. And I think Shannon Sharp, he brought trash talking into the game. He didn't bring it into the game, but he brought it up another level. He was a character. He's charismatic. He's an enigma. And I think with what he was able to do on the field, his resume speaks for itself. There is no way you can have this list and not have Shannon Sharp on it. And I think that, he set records and he proved how, you can play this game of tight end. And that leads to my number two, Tony G.
I got you. Yep.
Tony G broke Shannon Sharp's actual reception record because Tony G was incredible. There was not a pass thrown this guy's way that this guy would not catch. And I think with Tony Gonzalez, he was someone that you never had. We talked off air about Alvin Kamara and the trouble he's in. You never had trouble with Tony G.
Mm-mm.
Never. He played by the rules. People would get up in his face. He'd be like, man, I'm not here for all that. He was a hit with many fans just based on his personality and the way he was so driven. And he was also a big proprietor of basketball players becoming football players because he played basketball, then became a tight end and was successful. Next after Tony G, I'm going to go with Ozzy Newsome.
Okay.
Ozzy Newsome was because there are tight ends who have to break Ozzy's record, and some have already done it, like Shannon and Tony G, but Ozzy Newsome was an incredible tight end. And I think when you look at, again, with black players who kind of laid the groundwork, especially for that position, it would be Ozzy. So got to go Ozzy Newsome.
All right.
And then my number 4, it's kind of tough because you have someone like Mike Ditka, but I'm going to go with a more modern, and I'm going to go bring it in, cowboy, we're going to call it Jason Witten.
Oh, okay.
Because I watched, and you want to talk about Mr. Reliable. That was Jason Witten. Jason Witten, in my opinion, was the one who kind of created this
safety valve,
safety net.
Where Kelsey, the Kelsey 5-yard stop, the Kittle 5-yard stop, where they're
Kelsey, Gronkowski. You don't have those guys. Kittle. You don't have those guys without Jason Witten, in my opinion. Jason Witten was just someone when the ball was in his hands. Jason Witten rarely dropped anything. He couldn't run, but he would not drop anything. And the guy was tough as nails. That his highlight reel will always be that classic Eagles game where he gets his helmet knocked off
and
he just keeps going. So I would have to go Sharp, Newsome, Gonzalez, Jason Witten.
Okay. Well, as always, I like to just mention that when I do my research on this, I try and go with tight ends that change the game. And when looking at that, the first one I looked at was Tony Gonzalez.
Tony G.
Because he was the first basketball player turned tight end, right?
I don't know if he was the first.
I'm pretty sure.
There were others before him.
Not to his success.
No, I mean, playing at the same time as him, Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham.
Antonio Gates started like 6 years
No,
after him.
I'm
Yeah,
not
but,
saying that they were the ones
Yeah.
before him. I'm just saying, there have been others, but no, not to Tony's success. No.
And yeah, he was the one that made it like a successful thing. Like
Yes.
you got a big basketball frame, and if you can go up for a jump ball and just create matchup nightmares for defenses in the red zone, or really just anywhere, but like specifically in the red zone too, beautiful. That's something that hadn't been done. And then, as you mentioned as well, Shannon Sharp, the oversized wide receiver that was playing tight end, because it suited him better and suited the scheme better for him to play there and put up fantastic numbers as well.
Yeah.
Shannon Sharp definitely on there. And then the guy that a lot of people old school wise think of when they think of tight end, and that's Kellen Winslow.
I knew it. I
from
knew it was
San
gonna be Kellen.
Diego. Yep.
I was thinking about Kellen because it's so hard not to put in. And just to be clear, folks, if someone doesn't make it on our list, we're not spiting them at all.
And especially when it comes down to that fourth spot, it's really difficult.
It's so hard because I was thinking about Kellen.
Mm-hmm.
His son played, and his son was very good. He was very, very good. Kellen Winslow, and I know this is your list with Kellen on it, but I have to say Kellen Winslow was fantastic. Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. He was kind of like the first deep threat tight end.
Yes, very much so.
He could beat, and he was a good blocker. Like this was still in the era where tight ends were like were blockers first, and then pass catchers second.
Yeah.
And this was the first one where it's like, no, he can block, but he's also fast enough where if you cheat up as a safety or if you put a linebacker on him, you're going to get beat over the top.
Yeah, I think Winslow, his frame was not that big. Like he was a tight end, so he was a sizable guy, but he was not. I think I would put him at Shannon Sharp type of weight, maybe 230-ish, instead of being like Gronkowski, who's like 257. Yeah,
I think that's about right. Yeah, and then I'm going to put Gronk as number 4.
He was hard not to do.
And because the thing that is that he, and a little bit of his Belichick and his combination with Brady, but the ability to put Gronk anywhere on the field, like there's quite a few times, especially during that first year in Tampa, where he was just a wide receiver.
Yeah.
They just split him out on the outside and said, do like a 5-yard stop route, and we're just going to toss it to you because you're that big. And he can block.
Yeah.
And he was...
Plus, he was also the master of this type of push-off using his
the
forearm.
Yeah.
But you're not extending,
right. And he wasn't like... he was pretty athletic, but he wasn't going to burn you like Shannon Sharp or Kellen Winslow.
I would put him
but
more...
he was faster than Witten.
But I would still make him a Witten type where he's a possession end. He's not a Sharp or a Winslow where it's like I'm a vertical threat. Right. He was more of a possession end.
Witten was like the ultimate safety valve, like little 5-yard stop, but he never had the versatility.
No, he did not.
That Gronk did. Like he was going to always line up a tight end.
So would you say more? Okay, so Gronk didn't have the speed, but he had more athleticism, is what you're saying. In a sense,
he just had the versatility. And maybe, I mean, I'm sure Shannon Sharp could have lined up outside if they wanted him to.
Yeah.
Maybe. I know it's a little bit of a different skill set.
It's a different skill set, but I think he could have to. So would he be more akin to Witten or Gonzalez? Because Gonzalez, I don't think, would burn anybody.
Who, Sharp?
No, Gronk. Because Gonzalez wouldn't burn anybody, but Gonzalez came from basketball, and Gonzalez was big enough.
He's more like a Gonzalez type.
Yeah,
where
that's what I'm
like,
thinking, yeah.
Most of his stuff was like 5-yard outs. Sometimes he'd line up outside, and he just like
sometimes
run a 5-yard
you get more
stop.
because he'd be wide open,
Or he was big. He's a big dude. He's hard to take down.
He's very big, yeah.
And you try and put a poor little cornerback on him on the outside.
Yeah, it doesn't
trying
work.
to cover him, and he just can't compete with him. So the versatility of Gronk was something that was pretty crazy. And the fact that he like took a year off, came back, and then won a Super Bowl and looked like he hadn't like missed a beat, pretty impressive too.
So would you one of the things with tight ends that I'm like, they are becoming, in my opinion, they're never going to rise above quarterback. That will never happen. But would you say that tight ends are becoming the second most popular position in football? Because they kind of are. Like, receivers will always beat them out. But think about it. Think about when we were growing up, and you had a few good tight ends like Dallas Clark, Greg Olsen, Witten, Gonzalez, Gates.
They are the second most underrated
Very
on,
much
on
so,
offense,
because
with
now
the offensive
you
line
have-
being the most underrated.
Yeah, because now you have Kittle, Kelsey,
yes,
Gronk. Honestly, it seems like your team is not complete if you don't have a good tight end, in my opinion.
yeah. I mean, you can work with 4 receivers and no tight end.
Yeah.
But the versatility that a good tight end will
Brings
give
you
yeah,
is-
and the ability to run block out of any set, the ability to chip block and then get out to an open spot.
Yeah.
The best tight ends are always able to find that spot in a zone where they have nobody around them. Like a lot of the times now, I'm pretty sure tight ends just get an option route.
Yeah.
Like you read the defense and you go here if it's zone, you go here if it's man, and just make a move and get
And
open.
do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, and then some of them can burn you on like a little bit deeper routes, but a lot of the times, like the Kittles and the Kelseys now are just they're going to find an open spot and they're reliable and they're going to catch the ball. They'll get you 5, and then sometimes they'll break it because they're pretty big and it's hard to tackle for if there's a corner on them. So yeah, Gates, Sharp, Gronk, and Winslow.
You put Gates in there.
Oh, Gonzalez. Sorry. Gonzalez,
yeah.
Sharp, Winslow, and Gronk.
Yeah.
Which Antonio Gates, I mean, the only reason I didn't put him is because Tony Gonzalez came first.
Yeah.
But Antonio Gates is...
You can't not... Antonio
can't
Gates
not
will be one of
talk
these
about-
guys on
yeah.
this Hall of Fame list that we bring up later, because Antonio Gates was really just as reliable as Tony was.
He's the all-time leader in touchdown catches by a tight end.
Yeah.
And 6 on the career for all players.
Gates is going in when it's time. Graham was the only one who didn't achieve that level of success.
And even then, he was still
And
solid.
then Jimmy Graham was very good. I'm not knocking Jimmy.
There was
but
one point where he was probably one of the best tight ends in there.
There was a point where Jimmy was the best.
Yeah.
So it was just...
Probably during those Super Bowl runs with the Giants.
Yeah, but Jimmy...
No, that was Shockey. Sorry.
Shockey.
Graham was with the Saints?
Saints. Yeah,
okay, yeah, Saints.
You hit me in my heart.
Sorry,
I remember growing up with Jeremy Shockey.
Dude, that dude was a trip. You will not find him on a list. He was a troublemaker.
Jeremy Shockey.
Oh, my God. I got NFL Street flashbacks to Jeremy Shockey. I forgot about him.
But Shockey, I mean, there's also Vernon Davis.
Yep.
There's a lot of guys who played that were
Dallas
very
Clark
good.
had a great year had a great career with Manning.
Yeah, so it's just a lot of guys.
It's a lot of guys. A lot of tight ends.
Yeah, but, I mean, so we did DBs, we did linebackers, we've done defensive line, we've done quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and, tight end. I think that wraps up football, don't you think?
Yeah, we're going to have to...
Move to basketball?
Maybe? Guards? Do we want to start with guards?
I go... Because we've already done point guards, so I guess we got to do shooting guards.
Did we do point guards?
Yeah, point guards was the first one we started with.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought we just did general basketball.
We did?
Yeah.
Oh, you might be right. I think you're right, because we just did basketball and we talked about LeBron and Jordan and all that stuff. Okay, so yeah, we'll do point guards.
Point guards, basketball time. It is basketball season.
Yeah, that worked.
All right. That's a good old show. We appreciate y'all tuning
Traditional
in.
show. Nobody's yelling.
We appreciate y'all tuning in to the main event. A big old thank you to Dan Bala and Mark Lambert for letting us use the Green Studio deep in the heart of Texas. A semi-successful first camera run, I think.
I'm more than likely.
First segment.
I'm more than likely sure I've been leaning in and out of frame.
It's fine. We'll figure it out. It's just a little behind the scenes thing. It's a trial run.
Yeah.
Well, that'll do it for the main events. Until next week, y'all have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next time.
Boom.